Hey guys, what's up? We are back with another podcast, and this episode will be a really special episode. So, we have one of our inspirations, and it's indeed Varun Mayya. Welcome to our podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here.
We're talking about things like Avalon Meta, like things like Twitter. We're talking about relationships per se and how it affects careers. So, without any further ado, let's jump right into it. All right. So, speaking about introduction, there's already a lot of information available about Varun on the internet. But for the people who don't know Varun, I don't know what rock you're living under in. Just introduce yourself, Varun, in a few sentences.
Sure. I'm CEO of Avalon and Avalon Meta. I was one of the youngest entrepreneurs in India to have raised venture capital. I did that when I was very, very, very young in college, my last year of college. We scaled that platform to scale to about 4 million requests in 2016, sold it in 2017, and then I started Avalon, which is a company I currently run. In the beginning, we decided that we want to kind of work on the services side, build software, do
Hmm.
marketing for companies across the world, and then eventually build a product of our own. In between, we've had our stint with investing, which didn't work out. It wasn't the greatest kind of experiment for us, but there are a lot of experiments that did work. We sold a small company in the middle of Avalon, and now we're working on Avalon Meta, which is kind of revolutionizing education. So having worked in almost every single segment in the digital space, we think, and with several successful projects and track record,
Hmm.
we think we're the right people to fix education in India. So that's what we're working on, specifically digital education. Um, so less
Right, all
things like
right.
mechanical engineering and more things
Hmm.
like software and design and stuff like that.
Great. So you spoke about Avalon, right? So let's introduce Avalon to the listeners. So for example, like let's say Avalon is going to a college for placements. How would you introduce Avalon to those guys?
Sure. So we've got two parts in Avalon, right? We've got the services side and we've got the product side. The services side is bread and butter, right? We work with different clients and we end up and we've got some really massive clients across India and across the world. We work with several VC funded clients, Series A, Series B, Fortune 500, all over the place. And you can find more information on our website. But the end point is we work with these clients. We hire people, have them work directly with the clients so that they learn. We run ads for the clients, we run campaigns for the clients, and that's on the advertising side. And then on the sourcing side, or rather on the software side, we build software for them. So we'll build apps, we'll build um, web apps, anything
Hmm.
under the sun. And now we've had some experiments building games as well, but we don't do it for clients, we do it for ourselves.
All right.
So
So you spoke about investing in companies, right? Because I know you've been investing. Avalon has been investing in a few companies. So how does it feel like, feeding a company and see it grow? How does it feel like?
hmm, well, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because see, I'm an entrepreneur. I've realized over the years that I'm not an investor, I'm an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
If one of the companies that I've invested in is struggling, like say a Mana Network or Foxbound or whatever, like the companies that we put money in, if I see them struggling, I pull up my sleeves and I try to help, right? So that is actually a bad thing. You should
Hmm.
give the entrepreneurs space. You should let them kind of experiment and figure things out rather than figuring things out for them, right? So I realized that the speed at which I move, nobody else moves at that speed. So what we what we've recently, or rather what I've recently learned is it's best for me to kind of be in a situation where I'm in control of almost all the variables. I obviously have a team to optimize these variables, but I need to be in control. Like I can't wait
Hmm.
for somebody else's permission to move. And when you're an investor, when you put in money and you see a company struggling, it's a very bad feeling, right? You're it's a gut wrench in your stomach because it's money you worked hard for. It's not, see, a traditional investor invests other people's money. They're called limited partners. They invest limited
Hmm.
partners' money. We invested our own money, right? We invested money that we made from the services side, from the revenues, right? We put a ridiculous amount of money. For example, Foxbound, we put in almost at this point more than a crore, right?
Hmm.
So those sort of situations, it's not the most fun, and you feel a little bad when things don't work out well. And when things work out well, it's fantastic, but you don't feel like you've earned the full reward or the full credit because you feel like you're riding on somebody else's work, right? The entrepreneur's work.
Hmm.
So we are entrepreneurs, and we decided we just want to do this by ourselves, and that's the reason why we don't invest anymore, to be honest. But at the same time, two of our investments are doing really well. The other three or four didn't work out so well, but we've learned more from the failures than we have the successes. In fact, if anything, the successes all looks very similar,
Mhm.
right? The way the successes worked, the things that worked for them, the things that clicked are all very similar. And I can share some of that towards the end of this podcast.
Definitely right. So you, let's say you're starting investing again, and let's say Cash Markets comes up to you for like a pitch deck or something. What would you look for in a company? Let's say Cash Market. What do you want the company to have so that you would invest in the company?
See, firstly, I'm not the best investor, and I'm also not representative of the general investors out there.
Hmm.
I think there are much more sophisticated investors than us that look at 10, 20, 30 different other things than we do, and who've been there across time. But what I would look at is it's very simple, right? I just look at the team. We're a seed stage investor. We put in a small amount of money. In terms of business, putting in a crore is very small amount of money. I mean, it might seem like a big amount of money to students, but in terms of running a business, it's not enough money for the business to you know s- unless the business is something that's already profitable and they're raising just for fun or something, then it's different. Or they're raising because they have the potential to, or it's not a very scalable business. But if it's a scalable business, you should ideally be looking at bigger investors. And what I look for is just the team, man. If the team has the potential to kind of make it big, to win, to swing for the big leagues, then I invest in them with full knowledge that there's a good chance that I lose all my money.
All right.
um, no stranger to that anymore.
All right, all right. So you raised capital for Jobs Fair, right, a few years back. So how was the feeling while cracking that investor and getting that money and scaling that business upwards? What was that feeling?
It was actually terrible. Terrible because see, till you raise the funding, it's difficult, right? And when the PR comes out and all, yeah, it's awesome, right? Because you're like, oh wow, I've raised money at this age. But then it also comes with potential, like with a responsibility, right?
Hmm.
You got so many investors who are riding on you who are saying, Varun, what's up? How are we doing? How are the reports like? So more than anything, and we had raised too early to be honest with JobSpire. We should have maybe raised 1 year later once we had figured out product market fit because it's a lot of anxiety otherwise. And that's all. That's the number one recommendation I give to new entrepreneurs, which is try to find product market fit. Try to find a business that works and then go out and raise money. Otherwise, you're just setting yourself up for anxiety, like a
Hmm.
ridiculous amount of I don't know what's going to go on. But luckily we figured it out. To a certain extent, obviously, Avalon is far, far, far bigger than JobSpire. But for a 19-year-old, I think it was not a very bad situation to be in.
All right. So even Avalon Meta raised funding few months back, I guess. So what was the like primary difference between those two like fundings? What did you find really special in Avalon Meta?
So see, Avalon Meta is a much, much more stable company. And obviously, I'm a much more mature entrepreneur now than I was back then, right? Back then, when I raised money, I was like 20. What is, it's 7 years. So I was a very new entrepreneur. I was still figuring things out. But with Avalon Meta, I know exactly what I need to do. We raise capital for growth. Like everything that you see us do on Instagram or on the app, it's very very planned in advance. We know exactly how to kind of work with the audience. We know how to grow them, and now we have something called a cost of acquisition. We know how much it costs for us to get somebody to join the Avalon army, right? And now our plan is just, well, let's just scale this.
All right, all right. So we are at the primary agenda of our podcast. So it's Avalon Meta. So let's say you want to introduce Avalon Meta to a ninth or 10th grade student, right? So how would you introduce Avalon Meta to them?
So here's the thing, right? We have a thesis that in the next 5 to 10 years, almost everything in the world, whether you're making a coffee machine or you're building a house or you are working on a website for a client, almost everything will be done through software, right? Today, even if you look at a Coca-Cola manufacturing plant, everything is software operated, right? So we believe software is eating the world, and this is a quote by Andreessen Horowitz, in fact, one of the biggest VCs in the world, called "Software is eating the world." So we
Hmm.
believe that the means to do everything will be two things, right? English and software. You need to know the English language to be able to read the documentation, and then you need to know the software to be able to interface with whatever machine you're working with. So we believe in that like very strongly, and our goal is to teach those skills, right? And some of those skills are digital, some of those skills are have a little bit of a self introspection perspective, like what am I doing? How do I manage people? How should I think? So we include those, and then we include more hardcore skills like how do I do design? How do I use
Hmm.
Photoshop? How do I use a 3D software? How do I use the Unreal Engine? So stuff like that. It's very uh, tangible. So whenever somebody uses Avalon Meta, they walk away knowing a lot of stuff, right? So it's like a very, you use
Mhm.
it and then immediately you become good at what you do. So that's the kind of place we come from for Avalon Meta.
All right. So it's tough, man. So the thing with Avalon Meta is you have produced a lot of video for a lot of courses, right? So we have been into video production for a long time, and we know what kind of effort that requires to produce so many videos, right? And those also well produced, well edited videos. So how was the creative process like, and how much time did it take to make one video and to edit it all out?
Mm, I don't know. We don't find video a very intensive process. Like we actually find video quite simple. But that's because we have a bunch of tools we use, right? Some are mobile driven tools. Some are more on the PC Premiere Pro type of tools. And we have a very good team. We have some really really good people on the team. In fact, anecdotal story about college and this thing, and the way it relates to the world is, we have this designer in the team called Ibadat, right? You
Mm-hmm.
see his work, you'll be like, this guy's spectacular. It's absolutely good stuff that he puts out, right? And he's a very, very good designer. He can do 3D too. The funny thing is that he was kicked out of college, right? He had to drop out of college because, I don't know, attendance issues or something. So college, I can't believe that any college would remove somebody like Ibadat because he's so good. And it just goes to show you how much the world is changing.
Man, yeah, man. You spoke about college, right? So you've gone through, most of your Instagram videos, YouTube videos, right? So you were, sort of against this idea of further education, which is currently in state, right? So, just elaborate on it. Like, why do you say so? And if, let's say, a student he has two options, like either to choose further education or to do something else. How, what should the student do in that situation?
See, I think the wording is wrong. It's definitely not further education, right? Everyone should look at further education, but you should also look at a reasonable means to get that further education. If you're saying I'm going to spend 30 lakhs to learn something that's outdated by the time I finish college, I mean, that's just stupid. And I've been screaming about this from the rooftops for the last 4 or 5 years, man, probably even longer. And the funny thing is that, you know this is just, it's just ridiculous, because now, because of coronavirus, because of this small little thing that came out of nowhere, everyone sees the fraud that college is, and especially these tier 2 tier 3 Indian colleges. Like, dude, an IIT IM will always be there, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they're more than the college, they're a community. They have a lot more going on for them. They have research, right? They've got a lot going on for them. But your Lalu Prasad Yadav University, whatever, Koramangala, it's just stupid. It's a waste of time, and it's a waste of energy, and it's a waste of your parents' money more than anything. But parents have
Mm-hmm.
bought into the idea that college is some hyper important, it's some, I don't know what parents have been thinking, right, for a very long time. But that's narrative driven by their friends,
Mm-hmm.
by newspapers, by advertising channels, that you have to go to college, you have to go to some college or the other you have to send your child to. It's a matter of respect and pride. That has fallen flat on its face in the corona era. But that's what I've been saying for the last 5 years, and we're ready for like huge societal change. And luckily for us, Meta is on in the forefront of that change in India.
Yeah, I get that ad nausea, right? Because a lot of people have this drilled in their minds that college will help you get a job. College will, get all the success. But, even I have been speaking about this for a while, like not like on the internet or something, but to normal people, like face to face. Their argument is, bro, how do you get the network? So, what do you want to say on that? Like the network that you get from the college.
Well, that's it. Go to your browser, type t.me/Avalon Telegram. That's the network you need. That's the cool thing, right? We have the internet. Before the internet, college made perfect sense. So people think I'm against college, and they give examples, and they be like, "Bro, this guy is done an MBA, some 50-year-old guy. See, he's CEO of whatever company." I'll be like, "Yes, he did an MBA at a time where an MBA was necessary to get that network. Today, you have the internet. What is like, what is the net in internet stand for? It stands for network, right? So we built these networks, and now it's become niche networks, right? You want a network for game design, you can find it. You want a network, and you can look at the Avalon army, right? We've got our entire networks on Telegram. You can see on the Telegram app, you can see that we've got a network for everything from game design to mechanical to Webflow to it's Photoshop to design. I mean, we've got networks in everything, right? So if you're saying you need to spend 20 lakhs to get that network and somebody's offering it to you for free, you're an idiot, right? I have nothing better to say. And the good news is most people are not idiots. right? Most people have already realized this. Students know this, right? Students know that the assignments they're doing in college have no relation to the real world. They know that teachers are
Mm-hmm.
just troubling them and making them do, this or that, which there's no correlation with the real world. It's not like if you do that assignment, suddenly you become better at what you're doing in the real world. Firstly, the software, the technology that colleges use are decades old, right? So anyway, you're learning some really, really old stuff. And the hope is that, okay, at least you learn the concept from those stuff. But the problem is today, those concepts are different, right? Because the new
Mm-hmm.
tools have come out, the concepts for the new tools are different too, right? So it's just, and I always believe that you should learn theory after you've seen the value of something, or you've seen a little bit of practicals,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that I think college is not, I mean, they've not, students have started realizing this as much as everyone else has. So I'm very excited to finally be in a world where everyone has realized what's going on, and college no longer has that potential of being that I have
Mm-hmm.
to go to college to become something in life. That's done, that's dead.
All right, right. So you spoke about like the basic idea I got from your reply is that college is not adapting enough, and we already have so many tools
And
for
it's too expensive.
networking. Yeah, it's
And
too
it's too expensive.
expensive.
See, if college was like 30 or 40,000 rupees per year, makes
Mm-hmm.
total sense, right? And if it was obviously a college with good output where you actually learn something from good teachers. Right? Firstly, colleges don't hire good teachers because they cannot afford good teachers, because people are, the college wants the bigger margin,
Mm-hmm.
right? And most people who are practitioners who are really good at their job, they don't teach. They don't want to teach, or even if they teach, they want to teach part time because they're like, dude, I have a job, I need to stay relevant at my job. There's a problem, you see, like if you're relevant at what you do every day, then you do not have the time to be a full time teacher. Because if you're a full time teacher for 2 years, that's suspect. That's a problem,
Mm-hmm.
because you understand why, right? Because you've lost touch with reality, you've lost touch with what you're doing on a daily basis. Like my good friend Tanay says this, right? Tanay is he's a software developer at Microsoft, and he teaches on the part time, right? And I've
Mm-hmm.
asked him several times, why don't you teach full time? And he's like, very simple answer to this, right? If I teach full time, I won't know which is the latest frameworks, how I should work on this, how I should work on that. I become a fraud essentially if I don't work full time. So that's, I think, what
Mm-hmm.
right now the world is missing, which is teachers who are part time, but part time for a reason.
All right, all right, all right. So, I like that point also, right? So the thing with, colleges and stuff and even schools, right? They're not teaching the essentials right now. So let's say design of blockchain. So blockchain is not that new. Like it was new a couple of years ago, but it's not that new. But, it's a very useful skill. Like I know few people who are just like at the age of 13, 14, 15, they're getting, they're the IBM developers for blockchain. Like, blockchain is a very underrated concept in my opinion. And, let's talk about blockchain. So, how would you explain blockchain to a layman? Like how would you do that?
Well, it's simple, right? It's like Google Docs, but it's got redundancy in the sense that redundancy is not a layman word, I guess. But it's basically like, here's the thing, right? Let's assume there are 10 of us in a room, okay?
Hmm.
And out of the 10 of us in the room, one person decides, you all decide to create a financial system. Now, the current financial system with banks is that one person decides, I'm going to keep, a record of all the transactions that happen. I'm going to, keep this notebook. And in my notebook, I'm going to write when, Rahul in the group sends money to, say, Sandeep in the group.
Hmm.
I will write it down in my book so that tomorrow there's no confusion on who sent who what money. Right? Now, the problem with that is if this bank guy, this individual guy becomes corrupt, then you have a big problem, right? And you understand why, right? Because he
Hmm.
can just change the book whenever he feels like, right? So that's the current system with banking, where the banks, they're doing whatever they want, right? The government is printing money. The government, and firstly, you're not supposed to do that for multiple reasons.
Hmm.
They're kind of undermining the reason that people pay taxes, and they're misusing that capital, right? You don't know where that money is being used. And obviously, in 2008 we realized that the government's bailed out the
Hmm.
banks, which again, it's unfair for the government to bail out a bank, because at some point you have to understand that the banks were the problem because they were giving out bad loans, right? It's that one guy in the group who's just giving out money to people and fudging the data whenever he feels like, saying that yeah, it's a good loan. So that is something that's effectively controlled by blockchain, because in the blockchain what happens is, instead of one person being the bank, everyone becomes the bank. People
Hmm.
say, everyone says, you know what, we'll all keep this notebook, and we'll all write down whenever anyone makes a transaction. Now, earlier in the past, that would be too resource intensive, right? And obviously everyone will have to actually keep that ledger, everyone will have to update that ledger. But because of internet and computers, you can automatically make the ledger happen. It's just You have a computer, and every time someone writes to the ledger,
Mm-hmm.
someone makes a transaction in the group, that's stored. So, and not just stored on one computer, but stored on everybody's computer. So that's the blockchain. And if somebody tries to fudge data, if say person 10 tries to fudge data and change it and say, instead of sending $100 from A to B, that the value is actually $1,000. If anyone tries to do that, he's kicked off the blockchain. That's why it's called a blockchain, right? Because it's not just one person; it's a bunch of people that end up making that
Mm-hmm.
decision.
All right, all right. So you spoke about the 2008, right? So we are at 2020 and we are going through a recession again. So, a lot of people are getting kicked out from the jobs and stuff. So how would, let's say, a 21, 22-year-old survive when he's kicked out from the job? What should he do next?
Firstly, think about why you got kicked out from the job, right? Firstly, actually, there are two reasons. It need not just be about your skills. It could also be about the company didn't have money, right? There are multiple
Mm-hmm.
things that lead to somebody getting a job, and it could be anything. So we've kind of first thing is don't take it too personally,
All
right?
right.
Don't be in a situation where you think that it's your fault you lost the job. It's the economy's fault, and also you might not have had the skills. So if you don't have the skills, then become irreplaceable. That's the thing, right? People don't understand it. As long as you're replaceable, you will be replaced at some point or the other. So a degree is not going to save you unless you are actually irreplaceable through your skill set. And I know several people who are irreplaceable, right? It's because they can solve problems. That's the only thing. Whatever field you put them in, eventually they'll be able to solve that problem in that field, whatever field it is, right? So that's something that you guys should learn, which is how to solve problems. And it could be in any field. I can solve problems in like 10, 15, 20 fields in the digital space, right? Even offline, if I had to fix a bulb somewhere or fix a broken pipe, I'd be able to figure it out by googling it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think that's the most important skill right now, how to use Google and being able to figure out anything. So and obviously both have the same relation with each other, which is if you can Google well, then you can also figure those things out. So it's Googling, extracting the right information, applying that information, which I think people don't understand. People think it's a degree that will help you fix a pipe, which is not. It's not true. It
All
doesn't
right.
matter what degree you have. If you
Mm-hmm.
can't fix the pipe, if the water is still leaking, then you're a failure. You're going to be replaced by another plumber.
Yep. So I get that, and also the thing that is prevalent right now, it's automation, right? So there are a lot of tools for a lot of things. So even for let's say cash markets, we didn't require a sales guy because we had so many tools right now. So we were using this thing called rocketreach.co, and
You guys
that,
should use Foxconn.
yeah, we don't have like the domain name yet. Once we get
Oh,
that, we'll shoot up to Foxconn. So right, so there are a lot of more industries that they are getting affected by automation, but they're not still getting noticed. So for example, just shed light on those industries which you feel are getting affected by automation, but still then people are not recognizing that.
see, one thing I've realized, right, is for somebody to recognize or realize a discovery, right? However, that cool or awesome or bad that discovery or whatever it is, it takes time. And sometimes that time it could take years and years and years and years, right? And sometimes it could even take decades. In fact, there's a saying in medicine called bench to bedside, right? Which means from the time you discover a medicine, right, or a drug, how long does it take for people to start using it? And usually that period is in 10 to 15 years, right? It's somewhat the same with technology, obviously much faster. It may be 4 or 5 years, but and even this narrative that college is going to die, it will still take 4 or 5 years to really settle into people that
Mm-hmm.
college is really going. It's not this is not some temporary thing. Um, or they will change their form. So it takes 5 to 10 years, right? So the thing with automation is it's already here.
Mm-hmm.
And like you don't need to build a full human being in AI to say that, oh yeah, humans are irrelevant. The thing is, when what we do on a daily basis on a job is we actually do narrow tasks. You understand what narrow tasks mean? So there are two
No,
kinds
they
of
can just rephrase that.
Sure. So there are two kinds of tasks, right, for AI. The first one is general tasks. General task is I eat a bread. I recognize that I'm eating a bread, and then I go and brush my teeth, and then I go to sleep. I've done three things which are not which are somewhat different from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe my pipe is leaking and I don't have anything else to fix in the pipe, so I take maybe something from maybe I take my glass and I shove it in the pipe so that my drinking glass, which is non-standard, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's not a set task, but you'll be surprised in a work situation, right? Most people don't spend their time on narrow tasks, sorry, on general tasks like these. They don't
Mm-hmm.
do multiple different small things, right? They instead do very focused things like Excel sheets or scraping leads, or
Mm-hmm.
if you're familiar with sales or
Yep.
prospecting, right? These are all
Mm-hmm.
very, very narrow tasks. The thing about AI is we are very far from creating an AI that can be general, that can talk to somebody and then go to sleep, or talk to somebody and then go on a trek in a forest. We're very far from that kind of AI which can do multiple things. But we are actually very, it's already there where you can create an AI system where a simple narrow tasks like prospecting or scraping leads is done. We already do it on Foxbound, right? And this replaces the job of somebody who's maybe, mm, let's say somebody who's worked for 10 years in the field of prospecting.
Mm-hmm.
It can replace that person's job, right? Completely. And the thing is, even though those tools are there, people still have overblown prospecting teams because it's hard to say a big company, right, like Deloitte,
Mm-hmm.
with thousands of employees. It's very difficult for them to adapt and change and say, okay, now we have this tool, now we'll fire 500 of our employees. That entire process takes 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever. It takes as long as they can possibly get it onto. Plus, you have to remember that you can't just fire 500 people like that at a big company, right? There's a lot of lashback when you do that. Just because you find a tool, the phase out of people happens very, very, very slowly. So automation is already here. It's just that it'll take some time for people to see it in action.
All right, so we'll come back to automation, but I wanted to ask this question: why has Foxbound have that that domain name, require the domain name? Why is that like that? Why can't general emails use Foxbound?
Because general emails won't convert. Like at the end of the day, Foxbound, it's not charity, right? Like we have a server running there that costs a lot of money. We're running a scraper on the back end that costs a lot of money. The scraper is something that runs constantly. It scouts the entire internet, which requires a lot of computing power, a lot of server
Mm-hmm.
bandwidth. So we want accounts that will convert. Right. So if we have a generic account, something at gmail.com, and we expect that to convert, it's not going to, right? Because most people who use a Gmail account are using it casually. Whereas somebody like, say, somebody who's using Foxbound for commercial purposes will have a company account. So, and Foxbound's main target audience, for us, is like bigger companies, like companies like
Mm-hmm.
Visa, like companies like Dell. These are the companies that are using Foxbound right now. So that's our target market. It's less the small, creators, but at the same time, we understand the needs of the small creators, and we're working on a startup plan. The only thing is, it still requires a domain. A domain costs like 99 rupees. Today, you can actually get a domain for $100. And if you don't have a domain, it shows a lack of seriousness, to be honest,
All
right?
right.
So that's, I mean, I'm not talking about you guys, but in general, that's what it signifies. So, that's essentially where we come from when we prevent having a domain, or we prevent you guys from signing up without a domain.
All right, we'll take that into account, and also let's get back to automation, right? So, in my opinion, like let's say the music industry. So, I'll first take your opinion. How do you think will the music industry get affected by automation?
Hmm. See, first things first, right? You can have some tastes, and your tastes as a human being are very dependent on your past or your future, right? It really
Mm-hmm.
depends on what experiences you've had, and who you've been talking to, and what music you've listened to when you're young, what music your parents listen to, what music your friends listened to when they were young, that sort of stuff, right? So to get an idea of what your tastes are, you need to listen to a lot of music on a platform, and a platform has to have a history of that. Because once it has a history of what you like and what you don't like, you're done, right? In the sense, it can find you exactly what you like hearing, and YouTube already does this reasonably well. Spotify does this even better, where
Mm-hmm.
eventually it will recommend you good stuff that you like listening to. And the hope is that you continue listening to the app forever, because every app, from a Meta to these kind of Spotify, YouTube, whatever, every app's goal is engagement, right? We want users to
Mm-hmm.
use the app as long as possible. And in our app with Meta, we say, well, we have to do that because we need to become a big app, but also we want people to walk away with good output, right? So we think that they're not mutually exclusive. Both can happen at the same time. You can really learn from an app, but at the same time spend hours on it. In fact, you need to spend hours on content to get good at it, right? So that's something that we've kind of we've
Mm-hmm.
seen that in music apps, eventually what's going to happen is they'll figure out your tastes, and then there'll be AI to
Mm-hmm.
to compose the music, right? Today, if you guys have looked at, I mean, just go to Google and type Melnet. That's Melnet,
Malnet.
right? So yeah, if you look at Melnet, right, it's a simple synthesizer. It allows you to kind of
Mm-hmm.
take somebody's, like, hundreds of comments from somebody, and by comments I mean like voice comments, like voice usage, and it allows you to kind of create a pattern of that person's voice. So whenever that whenever you have some sort of text string,
Mm-hmm.
it comes out in that person's voice. In fact, if you guys have heard of Jordan Peterson, he's a very famous professor with a lot of content online, or Joe
Mm-hmm.
Rogan. This has already happened to their voices. Right now, what's going to happen is all musicians eventually they will just go to Melnet, create the voice, right? Create a digital voice, and eventually you like some sort of music, you like some sort of lyrics. Maybe you
Mm-hmm.
really like the word "hey" in a song, right? Suppose you really like that word. Then what will happen is because Spotify knows this, um, it will kind of use Melnet, um, put out a song that's very similar. And this already happened in the EDM space without vocals, but
Mm-hmm.
it's about to happen to vocals as well, right?
Yes,
So
it
I'm
has actually happened, right? So I don't know if you know this producer, Ritviz, right? So he has his own sounds. So there are a lot of the EDM producers who apply their voices also. That's vocal chops, I guess that's what it's called. So this is happening already. And also, if we take production into the case, let's say you're applying chords to a melody, right? So those are like basic rules, right? So for example, if we take this song, "I Like Me Better," have you heard the song?
maybe.
So like the first verse has like the notes A, B, C sharp, and it's F sharp, right? So there are basic rules for matching chords. So there's no such plugin. So I've checked it. There's no such plugin which applies chords to melodies. So there are a lot of more options for the plugin space, in my opinion. Like, what's your take on it? Like music plugins, how would they progress in the future?
See, it's very simple, right? These are all dual skill requirements. Till now, everyone's been a single skill guy. Like I either learn computer science or I learn music. But some guy who knows computer science and music will eventually figure this out, right? So more and more of these are coming every year. More people are self-learning music, more people are self-learning computer science. In fact, college wasted 4 years of people's time. So that's what I'm saying, right? Like I can prove to you that college has actually been the villain that's kind of stunted progress in many different fields. But at the same time, when college goes, automation will happen. Like an insane amount of automation will happen because people will self-learn multiple skills. And if to automate, you need to definitely know computer science. You need to definitely
Mm-hmm.
know English and or Chinese, any sort of major language like that, or Hindi if you're in India. And once you know that, it's very very simple for you to kind of pick up a problem and just say, okay, this is a problem that requires music and computer science. I will figure this out because I know both. And that's exactly what's happening in the world right now. That's where most of the VC funding, most of the VC money is going.
All right. So, speaking about automation again, so we were doing influencer marketing for a long time. So we once, got in touch with an influencer, and this guy was working with like five influencer marketing agencies. So, in my opinion, like the social media management and all that will be automated soon. That's why we are not like putting super, like all our efforts into that. Like,
hmm
what's your opinion on like social media agency? Would they get automated, and how would they get automated?
I don't know. I mean, how hard is it for an influencer to hire one guy and tell him just reach out to different companies that need my work? Eventually there's going to be a platform that does this. It's as simple as Urban Ladder or Urban Clap, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've seen Urban Clap. What Urban Clap does, it's going to be somewhat the same, but a lot of or rather, the better alternative is Upwork. If you've seen Upwork for
Mm-hmm.
freelancers, it's exactly the same thing. Eventually there's going to be a platform that beats them. Somebody's going to build that platform, somebody's going to scale that platform. It's not going to be challenging at all.
All right. So we spoke about Upwork, right? So it's one of the sites for freelancing. Let's get into freelancing, like total deep. So what do you think, like a general freelancer needs to have to either like start freelancing, and what are the skills that he or she requires, like to just start out?
See, here's the thing, right? With freelance, um, freelancing is a step up to kind of entrepreneurship. You need skills and you also need like this mild ability to sell, because if you can't sell, it's a waste of time, right? you're
Yep.
you're not going to be a good freelancer if you cannot sell.
All right. So,
So you need the combination of these two skills.
okay, so there are two, like basically like two ways for general freelancers. Like one is to register on Upwork or freelancer.com and stuff, and the other way is cold email. So I've been doing cold emails since a while now. So like cold emails, it's basically it's very different from formal letters in my opinion, right? So formal letters have like a very simple subject, like something which is very easy to read and stuff. But if we take cold emails into the consideration, you have to put in some clickbait and stuff in that, because for example, you're mailing to, let's say for example, you're getting so many emails per day, right? and to read one email that requires something special, right? So that's cold email. So what do you
I
think
think
cold email should do? Hmm.
it's less about cold email. I think it's more about reach the person on the channel where they have the least amount of noise. Like I
All
have a
right.
lot of noise on Instagram. If you reach out to me on Instagram, chance I'll reply is very, very low, right? Because I get like 500 DMs a day. Whereas on email, I get about 100 emails a day. Noisy. On Twitter, I get very few DMs, right? So it's very dependent on which channel.
Hmm.
So use the channel that's least noisy for a particular person.
Okay, so if we like, if a person has to put a cold email, so what are the general steps he should follow so that most likely the person replies?
I don't think there are any most likely steps. Like it really depends on who you're mailing, right? If you're mailing, make sure that you make it short. That's I think main thing. Make it short and make it sweet and readable. Personalize it, dude. Like you cannot send a mass blast email and have like send the same email to 500 guys. Sending it to me, make it something relevant to me so that I feel like actually reading the email. Otherwise, it just sounds like you're selling me something, right? So be very careful about what you write and be personal. Like handwrite the emails. It's just like the olden days, the 1980s, where you had to actually manually handwrite the emails. But people don't want to put that effort. They want to send one blast email to everybody.
All right, so
And nowadays, I think
Mhm, mhm.
you should be using video and email. So there's a lot of video and email companies. I don't recollect the name of any. Like I don't. The name is not appearing at the top of my at the roll of my tongue. But there are some very good video and email companies. Video automation. We don't use it anymore, but it's very popular right now.
Like, can you elaborate on like video emails?
So you send a video in an email essentially. There's this static image of a video, and you press play, and the video plays. And you say, "Hi John, thanks for opening my email. I want to talk to you about XYZ." That's it.
All right, so speaking about cold emails and stuff, you were a freelancer before, right? And how was that feeling of getting the first freelance project done? Like, first I'll ask you, and I'll share mine too.
My first project took months, man. Like I expected it to be done in a month. It was $100 project. It's a very, very small amount of money. It took me 3 months to finish the project. 3 months. The client was just this change after this change after this change. But it was either way, it was cool. Like it was a good feeling because I felt independent. I'd never made money before that, right? Online. So making money online for your first time is pretty fun. Today everyone's doing it, right? In coronavirus, everyone is
Hmm.
technically a freelancer. So yeah, I mean, it's a good feeling, but it took much longer than I expected. I learned a lot of things about rules of engagement. Right, in Pajama Profit, we cover that rules of engagement, which is um, after your first, once you get a little bit of comfort, what do you tell your clients to make sure you don't unnecessarily keep on making unlimited number of changes? Right, so have like a set number of changes beforehand itself without appearing cold. Right, sometimes when you do that, you can appear cold. You can appear like some person who's rude or hard to work with, which I definitely appeared to when I was younger, because I was like, I'm only going to do this, and here are my rates. Otherwise, you can go do whatever you want, find somebody else. So you can do it much, much, much softly, which I've learned over the years.
Hmm.
uh, but that it's we detail more of that in Pajama Profit.
Yep,
It's our
I
book.
read that like story of the first freelance project you got, right? So I want to speak about this too, right? I've been into some freelance projects which the client is just I don't want to say this, but like terrible, because a lot of like changes after finalizing a thing. Like, did you have an experience like that, like the worst client? Just share experience on that.
I've had horrible clients, but here's the thing, right? It's necessary for you to have bad clients, because you'll realize that it's a function, like your ability to, pick up good clients is a function of um, uh, how experienced you are. So if you're not experienced, you're obviously going to get bad clients. It's just part of how things work. So it takes some time. It takes, you need to be a professional before you get professional client, and that's what's so cool about this thing.
All
Or
right.
rather,
Mm-hmm.
it's more like I mean, think of it this way, right? If you're a cricket player, first you have to play gully cricket before you play, or play in the nets before you play professional cricket, before you're paid well, right? Before you have good batsmen and bowlers in your team. Think of it like that. It's like that. Everybody needs to go through having bad clients. I mean, this is my stance on it. Otherwise, you'll never know what it's like.
All right. So I'll share my experience about my first client too, right? So it was like a few, like, I guess 2 years back. So I got this headphones. I saw that company. It was a great headphone, right? So I thought I should like get on their forums and try, saying that this like XYZ headphone is great. So I got their email as well, like support@xyz.com, right? So I mailed them, and I just asked if I could work with them because I had a few numbers and emails of a few, like live streamers, YouTube live streamers, right? So I did influencer marketing with them, and that was completely via cold email. So like my first project was via cold email, right? So I didn't, want to get to Upwork or freelancer.com. Like, do you think I made a mistake there by not registering on a actual like website?
I think it's a choice-based thing. Working on Upwork has its benefits. You get good deal flow. It's good to start your freelance career there, but I don't think it's good to stay on it for a very long time. It's like breast milk. You can be on it for a very short period of time. It's necessary. It's nutritious, but you know you cannot do it forever. It's spoon feeding.
All right. So, let's get back to Avalon as well, right? So, let's say you're hiring somebody for Avalon. What do you look like? What look for in a potential employee, and what would not like that client to do in front of you? Let's like keep the scenario of an interview. What do you look
So
for
here's
in a potential employee?
so here's the thing, right? We've drastically changed the way we hire people. Earlier, we used to hire people who are younger, train them up, and see them into the world, right? In the sense, we would be their guiding light through everything, right? Now we've changed that. We don't have the time for that. We've matured as a company, so we only hire experts, and we want to make sure these experts are all self-starters. So they pick up a project. If it's hard, then they figure out how to solve that problem by themselves. We want as little management as possible. So the thing with youngsters is you need to manage them. If you're running a company like Infosys or Music, there's a lot of management involved,
Hmm.
right? We don't like management. Management sucks,
All
right?
right.
So we want to kind of be the kind of um, entrepreneurs who just we do the creation of things like marketing, sales, or whatever it is. We'll do it by ourselves, but we need people to solve their problems. So for example, the dev team, they just handle their problem by themselves. We don't get involved unless it's something that's really urgent that we need to actually be involved in.
All right. All right.
That's
So,
the way we hire.
right. Right.
So we look for that.
Mhm. Right. So we are almost like at the end of the podcast. So, like three great tips for freelancers, like upcoming freelancer. What should they do?
Three great trips. Firstly, build a personal brand. Secondly, build a personal brand. Tertiarily, thirdly, build a personal brand. Today, there are plenty of people selling website design or software or whatever, even 3D printing or architecture. There's an unlimited number of people doing it, right?
Hmm.
How are you going to differentiate? How will you get projects? Like every person with like 3 followers who reaches out to me for anything, it looks shady, right? But if you've got an audience, and or if you're part of somebody else's audience or if somebody knows you, either you need to be a referral or you need to have an audience. One of the two is absolutely necessary in today's day and age. Even Upwork has started losing its charm. It's not even a good platform for new freelancers. So,
Hmm.
so yeah, that's my biggest recommendation to you. Build a personal brand.
Yep. So I like that point about like the Upwork is not good for like upcoming like the new freelancer because I believe there's a lot of traffic on those websites, and that's why getting like a project would be very difficult there. And also
Yeah,
like.
start becoming
Mhm.
like that. That's what I'm saying. Either personal brand or referrals. That's I think the way to go. That's why you need
Like.
to make
Mhm.
some friends. You need to network. That was the original purpose of college, right? To network so that you get an edge over somebody else. That's what college is lost because you're networking with some random, kids instead
Mhm.
of real professionals who come to your college to do something. Because the real professionals are too busy, man, to go anywhere. And now they can share their experiences on a mobile camera. They just need to switch on their front cam, open Instagram, Facebook, or something, or LinkedIn, and just say whatever they need to say.
All right.
So
So,
better to
there's
find that
one more
network.
thing, right? A personal website. So, is that really necessary for like like new freelancer or let's say a new professional?
100%. 100%. Like without a personal website, I don't know what you do, right? And I don't have the time. Uh, People who
Hmm.
don't know me know I work on several things at the same time, right? Like most top CEOs do. No time. There's no time
Hmm.
for me to deep dive. And your website is like, if I like your website, I will call you in for an interview like in a few seconds. I don't take too much time to decide on. I have no time to waste on deciding.
All right. So, I saw this course on just a second, Webflow on Avalon Meta, right? So that was really amazing. And, Webflow is very easy. First of all, it's just like Photoshop. Like if we see Photoshop for websites, it's just like that, but a bit more simpler. Like that helps building a personal website. So, Webflow, right? Did you make a personal website? How long did it take to make a personal website? And how did you use Webflow in that?
Yeah, my personal website's on Webflow. It took me like, I don't know, 10 minutes.
All right. That's insane because I tried making a website on Webflow like a couple of weeks ago. It took me like 6 hours to do so. Anyway, so
Yeah,
let's get like
I've
to
been
the
using Webflow. I've been using Webflow for like a very long time, and obviously HTML, CSS for almost 10 years now. So I wouldn't expect like that's what I'm saying, right? Don't compare your day one or your day two with somebody else's day 3000. Like literally, it's been 3000 days since I started working on HTML, CSS, right? So it's not a good comparison to make. So
and
don't worry about
also
it. Take your own time.
HTML CSS. It's like I've learned that, but it takes a long time to make a website on HTML and CSS, right? So even
Oh,
if I
but
copy paste the syntaxes, though it takes a
it,
long time.
it's the same fundamental, no, for Webflow and HTML, CSS.
Yep. So let's get to the last part of the podcast. So as you're a successful entrepreneur, like three basic tips for new entrepreneurs.
Three tips. Don't rely on funding or anything like that. I think it's those are that time is over. Right now, we live in a day and an age where you can figure out anything by yourself. Get your business model right, and that's number two. And number three is start small and then go big. I have this. Some people come in and say, these next 5 years I'm going to build this, and then after that I'm going to build rockets. Don't do that. It's a Sam Altman quote. Don't say that I'm going to do something else now for money and then do something else later for the the big change in the world. Start off with whatever big idea, big change you have because you'll be most passionate about it.
All right. All right. So it's been a great time talking to you, Varun. Like, thanks for giving us the time for the podcast. So if you guys like this video, just hit that like button and also follow Varun Maya at the links given down in the description. And yeah, until the next episode, peace out.
Hi guys, bye.